and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another true crime ASMR video for you, where we will be discussing the murder of Meredith Kercher. In this video, we will be breaking down the crime and its aftermath. I would love to hear your opinions on this one and who you think committed this crime. If you have recommendations for future videos, please let me know in the comments below. So, as always, we will begin the video with breaking down backgrounds of those involved and then moving on to the crime and what followed. Thank you so much for stopping by today. And without ado, let's dive in. Meredith Susanna Kara Kercher was born on December 28th, 1985. She was born in Southwark, South London. Meredith attended the Old Palace School in Croydon, and she was known as being very enthusiastic about the language and culture of Italy. She aspired to work for the European Union or as a journalist. In October 2007, she would go on to attend the University of Perugia, where she began courses in modern history, political theory, and the history of cinema. Fellow students later described her as caring, intelligent, witty, and popular. Kercher would decide to share a 4-bedroom ground floor flat in a house at Via della Pergola with 4 flatmates. Her flatmates were 2 Italian women in their late 20s, Filomena Romanelli and Laura Mazzetti, and a 20-year-old American student from the University of Washington. Her name was Amanda Knox. Amanda had been attending the University for Foreigners in Perugia on an exchange year. The girls would move into the flat would read under the Tuscan sun, and her interest in Italy would begin. Knox graduated from Seattle Preparatory School in 2005 and then studied linguistics at the University of Washington. She worked part-time jobs during this time to fund an academic year in Italy. Before her leaving for Italy, her family said she was outgoing but a little naive, and had said she wasn't ready for this time away. Knox would decide to bunk up in a flat with 4 flatmates, one of which, Meredith Kercher, who she met for the first time upon move-in day. During this time, Knox was employed part-time at a bar, Le Chic. Knox's American friends in Perugia claimed seeing very little of her, as she preferred to socialize with Italians. The basement apartment of the building where the girls lived was rented by young Italian men with whom both the girls were friendly with. One was Giacomo Salenzi, who spent some time with the girls in their flat on occasion. Around 2 a.m. one evening, at a basketball court, the group would meet Rudy Quaid. Quaid would attach himself to the group and would ask about Knox quite often. The girls would never invite Quaid into their apartment, so I just would like to point out it's very clear these girls were not a fan of this man. Like, it's clear the creepy vibe had been set. So, 3 weeks prior to the crime, the girls would go to festivals, and on October 20th, Kercher would become romantically involved with Salenzi, and he was the gentleman who lived in their apartment building. After a night out with Knox on October 25th, the group would go to a concert and meet Raphael Solicito, and he was a 23-year-old software engineer, and Knox and Solicito would soon become romantically involved, and Knox naturally would spend much of her time at his flat, which was a 5-minute walk from hers. On November 1st, it is an Italian holiday, and many of the Italians at the girls' apartment were away celebrating. After watching a movie at a friend's house, Meredith Kercher would return home around 9 p.m. that evening alone. Unfortunately, this would be the last time Kercher would be seen alive. On November 2nd, Knox, after spending the evening with her boyfriend, Solicito, she would return to her flat in the morning to find the front door open and drops of blood in the bathroom she shared with Kercher. Kercher's bedroom door was locked, which Knox really just assumed she was still sleeping. And she would go and return to her boyfriend's home, and the couple would return to her flat that same day. The two would notice a broken window in her flatmate Romanelli's bedroom, and Knox would go to Kercher's bedroom to ask her about it, and the door would still be locked. Kercher would not answer her door, which really alarmed Knox. Solicito would attempt breaking through the door and would be unsuccessful. Solicito would then call his sister, who was a lieutenant in the Carabinieri, which is one of Italy's national police forces. And he was just wanting advice on what to do. And she said to call the 112 emergency number, which he did. And he was recorded telling them there had been a break-in with nothing taken, and the emergency was that Kercher's door was locked. She was not answering calls, and that there were bloodstains. Knox would call Romanelli, her roommate, and tell her about the broken window, the blood, and the fact that Kercher was not responding. Romanelli would hurry home and search the flat for any items that may have been stolen. This would later be seen as her disturbing the crime scene. It would soon be discovered by the girls that the two phones Kercher typically carried were found in a nearby garden. Romanelli would find this to be very concerning and requested that the police force open the door to Kercher's bedroom. But the police would decline. Instead, a friend of Romanelli's would force the door open. Around 1:15 p.m. on November 2nd, 2007, they would find Kercher inside, lying on the floor, covered by a duvet. Kercher had been stabbed and died of blood loss from neck wounds. The first detectives on the scene were Monica Napoleoni and her superior Marco Chiachira. Monica would conduct the initial interviews and quizzed Knox about her failure to immediately raise the alarm, which was later widely used for the assumption that Knox was guilty. According to Knox, Detective Napoleoni was hostile to her from the beginning. Detective Marco Chiachira she had stayed over at Solicito's apartment that night, only going back in the morning to hers when the body was discovered. She would not be provided with legal counsel, as Italian law only mandates the appointment of a lawyer for someone who is suspected of a crime. On the night of November 5th, Knox would voluntarily go to the police station, although what would follow is a matter of dispute. Police would arrest Knox and her boyfriend Solicito and Patrick Lumumba, who was her boss at Le Chic. On November 6th, 2007, charges against her boss would be dropped. At her trial, Knox testified that she had spent hours maintaining her original story, and that she had been with her boyfriend at his flat all night and had no knowledge of the murder, but a group of Italian police would not believe her. Knox had said, "I wasn't just stressed and pressurized, I was manipulated." She stated she would testify to being told by the interpreter, "Probably I didn't remember, well, because I was traumatized, so I should try to remember something else." They said they were convinced that I was protecting someone. They were saying, "Who is it? Who is it?" They were saying, "Here's a message on your telephone. You wanted to meet up with him. You are a stupid liar." Knox also said that a policewoman was saying, come on, remember," and slapped her. Knox said she had asked for a lawyer to be present, but she was told it would make things worse for her and that she would go to jail for 30 years. So, she even said she wasn't allowed access to food, water, or the bathroom. However, the policewomen all stated she was. They would further say that Knox had asked for a lawyer but did not have one. Under pressure, Knox falsely had stated she had been home when Kercher was killed and that she thought the murderer was her boss. Knox, her boyfriend, and Lumumba were all arrested and charged with the murder. Her first meeting with counsel would not be till November 11th. One of the first detectives on the scene, Giachira, thought the arrests were premature and dropped out of the investigation soon afterward, leaving Napoleone in charge of a major investigation. Blood-stained fingerprints were later found on the bedding under Kercher's body. These fingerprints would belong to Quaid, who had left the day of the body being discovered to Germany. He would be extradited back to Italy. Knox, Solicito, and Quaid were then charged with committing the murder together. On November 30th, a panel of 3 judges endorsed the charges and ordered Knox and Solicito held in detention pending a trial. In a formal interview, Knox would say she had been brainwashed by police interrogators into accusing Lumumba and implicating herself. Knox became the victim of unprecedented pre-trial media coverage, as most high-profile cases do. Knox, because of this media coverage, which included leaks of her MySpace page, prosecution would even include a best-selling Italian book whose author imagined and invented incidents that allegedly had occurred in Knox's private life. They were painting her out to be promiscuous and have many lovers due to her nickname on MySpace, which was Foxy Knoxy. So pretty much they say that and made this girl out to be a whore, and that was enough for them to say she was able to commit murder, which is utterly ridiculous. During a November 19th, 2007 Skype conversation with his friend Giacomo Benedetti, Quaid did not mention Knox or Solicito as being in the building on the night of the murder. Later, his account changed, and he indirectly implicated them in the murder, which he now denied involvement in. He would be arrested in Germany, then extradited to Italy. He opted to be tried in a special fast-track procedure by Judge Michelli. He was not charged with having had a knife. He did not testify and was not questioned about his statements, which he had altered from his original version. Quaid was convicted of murder, but the official judge's report on the conviction specified that he had not had a knife or stabbed the victim or stolen any of Kercher's possessions. Michelli's finding that Quaid must have had an accomplice and gave support to the later prosecution of Knox. Evidence was used against Quaid, such as bloody fingerprints in the victim's bedroom and his DNA on her clothes and on her body. The judges reasoned that Quaid would not have faked a burglary because it would have pointed to him in view of his own earlier break-ins, though at the time of the murder he was known to police only for being detained for trespassing in Florence. So I don't know why that was relevant. Despite Quaid saying that Kercher had let him in through the entry door, the judges decided against the possibility of Quaid's having gotten in by simply knocking on the door, because they thought Kercher would not have opened the cottage door to him. Quaid, in his original account, had said that Kercher's confrontation with her killer had started at the entry door. One legal commentator on the case thought that insufficient consideration had been given to the possibility that Quaid had called at the house on some pretext while Kercher was alone there, murdered her after she opened the door to him, and faked a burglary to cover his tracks, which, that's what I think happened. But anyway, in October 2008, Quaid was found guilty of the sexual assault and murder of Kercher and was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. His prison sentence was ultimately reduced to 16 years. He was later given an even earlier release in December 2020 and authorized to finish his sentence with community service. In 2009, Knox and Solicito pleaded not guilty at a court diocese on charges of murder, sexual assault, carrying a knife, which Quaid had not been charged with, simulating a burglary, and theft of 300 euros, 2 credit cards, and 2 mobile phones. There was no charge in relation to Kercher's missing keys to the entry door and her bedroom door, although Quaid's trial said he had not stolen anything. There was a separate but concurrent trial of Knox with the same jury as her murder trial, in which she was accused of falsely denouncing her employer for the murder. Knox's police interrogation was deemed improper and ruled inadmissible for the murder trial, but was heard in her nominally separate trial for false denunciation. According to the prosecution, Knox's first call on November 2nd to Kercher's English phone was to ascertain if Kercher's phone had been found, and Solicito had tried to break in the bedroom door because after he and Knox locked it behind them, they realized they had left something that might incriminate them. Knox's call to her mother in Seattle, a quarter of an hour before the discovery of the body, was said by the prosecutors to show Knox was acting as if something serious might have happened before the point in time when an innocent person would have no such concern. The prosecution would rely on the claim of a homeless man, Antonio Curatolo, who said Knox and Solicito were in a nearby square on the night of the murder, using him as their star witness. prosecutors had a single piece of forensic evidence linking only Solicito to Kercher's bedroom where the murder had taken place. Fragments of his DNA were on the bra clasp. So not even the cloth, on the little clasp. And even his attorney, who was named Julia Bongiorno, very cute, said, "How can you touch the hook without touching the cloth?" There was no DNA of his anywhere else. The backstrap of the bra had multiple traces of DNA belonging to Quaid. According to prosecution's reconstruction, Knox had attacked Kercher in her bedroom, repeatedly banged her head against a wall, forcefully held her face, and tried to strangle her. Quaid, Knox, and Solicito had removed Kercher's jeans and held her on her hands and knees while Quaid had sexually abused her. Knox had cut Kercher with a knife before inflicting the fatal stab wound when then faking a burglary. The judge pointedly questioned Knox about a number of details, especially concerning her phone calls to her mother and roommate. The defense suggested that Quaid was a lone killer who had murdered Kercher after breaking in. Knox's lawyers pointed out that no shoe prints, clothing fibers, hairs, fingerprints, skin cells, or DNA of Knox's were found on Kercher's body, clothes, and handbag, or anywhere else in the room. Prosecution although claimed that they wiped everything away. Knox's lawyer said it would have been impossible to do that, to selectively remove only Knox's traces, and emphasized that Quaid's shoe prints, fingerprints, and DNA were found in Kercher's bedroom. As far as forensic evidence, it all seemed to point to Quaid. His DNA on the strap of Kercher's bra, a vaginal swab that was taken from her body, his DNA. His DNA would also be found mixed with her blood on the sleeve of her sweatshirt, which not only was covered with her blood, but his was all mixed in, so they were tussling. Quaid's DNA would also be found on the handbag of Kercher's, where all the items were stolen. The defense would request the judges to order independent reviews of evidence, including DNA and the compatibility of the wounds with the alleged murder weapon. Their request was denied. Defense would bring up text messages that provided reassurance that the girls, Kercher and Knox, were friends, which I could only imagine how this girl feels. She just lost her, probably a really good friend. She was surrounded by all Italian speaking, so, and it's just sad. On December 5th, 2009, Knox, by then 22, was convicted on charges of faking a break-in, defamation, sexual violence, and murder, and was sentenced to 26 years imprisonment. Solicito was sentenced to 25 years. In Italy, opinion was not generally favorable toward Knox, and an Italian jurist remarked, "This is the simplest and fairest criminal trial one could possibly think of in terms of evidence." Okay. In the United States, the verdict was widely viewed as a miscarriage of justice. I love that, miscarriage of justice. American lawyers expressed concern about pretrial publicity and statements excluded from the murder case being allowed for a contemporaneous civil suit heard by the same jury. Knox's defense attorneys were seen as, by American standards, passive in the face of the prosecution's use of character assassination. Although acknowledging that Knox might have been a person of interest for American police in similar circumstances, journalist Nina Burley, who had spent months in Perugia during the trial, said the conviction had not been based on solid proof, and there had been resentment toward the Knox family that amounted to anti-Americanism. So, Knox had been found guilty at a court d'assises, which, in Italy, the verdict of guilty is not a definitive conviction. So pretty much, as soon as you get a guilty verdict, you can begin an appeal and be retried. The appeal, or second grade trial, began on November 2010. A court-ordered review of the contested DNA evidence by independent experts noted numerous basic errors in the gathering and analysis of the evidence, and concluded that there was no evidential trace of Kercher's DNA had been found on the alleged murder weapon. So that was not the murder weapon. Police had found in Solicito's kitchen, so they framed him. The review found the forensic police examination showed evidence of multiple males' DNA fragments on the bra clasp, which had been lost on the floor for 47 days. The court-appointed expert testified the context strongly suggested contamination. On October 3rd, 2011, Knox and Solicito were found not guilty of the murder. In an official statement giving the grounds for the acquittals, the judge said Knox had been confused by interviews of obsessive duration in a language she was still learning, and forensic evidence did not support the idea that Knox and Solicito had been present at the murder. The false accusation conviction in relation to her employer was upheld, and the judge of this trial imposed a 3-year sentence, although this was nominal, being less than Knox had already served. She was immediately released and returned to her Seattle home. On March 26, 2013, Italy's highest court, the Supreme Court of Cassation, set aside the acquittals of the second-level trial on the grounds that it had gone beyond the remit of a court d'assises d'appello by not ordering new DNA tests and failing to give weight to circumstantial evidence in context such as Knox's accusation of the bar owner in the disputed interviews. A note Knox composed in the police station, not mentioning Quaid, was regarded by the Supreme Court as confirmation that she and Quaid were present while Kercher was attacked. A retrial was ordered, and Knox was represented but remained in the United States. On January 30th, 2014, Knox and Solicito were found guilty. In their written explanation, the judges emphasized Quaid's fast-track verdict report was a judicial reference point establishing that he had not acted alone, which I don't agree with. They just believed that these two held her down while and assisted Quaid in the murder. On March 27th, 2015, the ultimate appeal by Knox and Solicito was heard by the Supreme Court of Cassation. It ruled that the case was without foundation, thereby definitively acquitting them of the murder. So they didn't have a murder weapon. They didn't. The original one, there was no evidence from Meredith on it. They had no murder weapon, which shocks me that they could have put away Quaid without a murder weapon. It's very interesting. Her defamation conviction was upheld, but the 3-year sentence was deemed served by the time she had already spent in prison. Due to the case having no foundation, they were definitively acquitted of the murder, rather than merely declaring that there were errors in the earlier court cases, or that there was not enough evidence to convict. The court ruled that Knox and Solicito were innocent of involvement in the murder. The court would later publish the report on the acquittal, citing glaring errors, investigative amnesia, and guilty omissions, where a 5-judge panel said that the prosecutors who won the original murder conviction failed to prove a whole truth to back up the scenario that Knox and Solicito had assisted in the murder of Kercher. Solicito and Knox's relationship would end in 2012, so by this time they weren't together anymore, probably from all this occurring. Talk about trauma. So, on January 24th, 2019, the European Court of Human Rights ordered Italy to pay compensation to Knox for for violating her rights in the hours after her arrest in Perugia. Italy was ordered to pay her 18,400 euros, which equates to $20,800. This was for not providing her with either a lawyer or a competent interpreter when she was first held in custody. After returning to the United States, Knox completed her degree and worked on a book about her case. She would be followed by paparazzi, and her family was in really bad debt due to supporting her in Italy. After publishing her book, the proceeds would go to pay for her legal fees to her Italian lawyers. Knox is now married to an author, Christopher Robinson, who is connected to the Robinson newspapers. In October 2021, she announced the birth of her daughter. So she lived happily ever after. And that is today's video. I will end this video, as always, with my final thoughts. So, I truly think the Italian government really just wanted to arrest an American. I really think it is important to remember the era America was in at this time. It was 2007, so this was, I wish I was a teenager in 2007, because 2007 was such a dirty, musky, party girl era in America. We had Umbrella by Rihanna being played everywhere. You have Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan. We were known for our women at this time. They were known for being provocative. They were known for just, it was the MySpace era. And I really think Italy imposed their own thoughts and views of those women on Amanda and kind of took it upon themselves to punish her for not only being an American, but an outgoing young girl. She was young, just beginning life, and a new adventure in a country and city that she loved. It's really sad that this has probably ruined her love for Italy. I do think that they swayed the entire thing. I think Wade should have been in jail for a lot longer than 16 years. The fact he raped and stabbed Meredith, and that's all the punishment he gets, just doesn't make sense to me. The justice system over there just seems really wild. I just couldn't imagine being in a country where I was learning the language. My best friend and roommate died, and now the cops are barking at me in a language I don't even really know. Could you imagine? Like so many people bring up her incriminating herself. She didn't know the language fully. She had an interpreter, and even that was discounted as not being a valid interpreter. But even with an interpreter, imagine that stressful of a situation. I just feel so bad for her and Solicito. They were both wrongfully accused. So, with that, we will end this video. I hope you found it relaxing and enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and